So now let's create our base class, which is the class that we are going to use, okay, in order to create our contract, okay? So this is the base class, the test base class. Before creating our class, I have to show you guys the use case. So we have here, okay, this method, we have here this service, right? So this customer service, as we can see, it creates a customer. So when we create a customer, we persist the customer into database, then we publish the event, customer created, okay? We publish the message, as we can see here, right? So the next thing that we are going to do here, we are going to test, okay, this functionality. So we are going to test customer created event. So in that order, let's go here on our package. Let's create our use case. So our use case will be should publish customer created. And we set here as a suffix base, just to show that it's a base class. Having it like that, now let's annotate it with Spring Boot test. And the next one is the annotation of Spring Cloud contract, which is the auto configure message verifier. So annotating this base class with auto configure message verifier, which is the Spring Cloud contract verifier, we are setting the functionality, right, of Spring Cloud contract in order to create our test. So now the next thing that we are going to do, we need to inject, because we don't want to mock this component, because we are testing this functionality. So we cannot create a fake behavior. So instead, we are going to inject this component, okay, customer service. In that order, let's just first use it here. Yes, and now let's inject it by using the outwire annotation. So now that we have here our service injected, now we need to find a mean or a way to invoke this service, okay? So we are going to find a way that we can actually invoke this service in order to create the customer, okay, and publish the event, which is the customer created event. So in that order, I'm just going to create here a method. Should create, or better, should publish customer created. So just like this. So we are telling that we are expecting, okay, that we will publish the customer created event. So now we need to instantiate, okay, the customer. Just like, for example, using here our reach domain, okay, reach domain object, which is the customer. So we are going to set up the first name. So let's just, for example, put here, okay, the Josh as a first name. And now let's set up the other data, just like as a last name. And let's also set the birth date. Now the next thing that we need to set up is email. So we are using our value object. If you remember all those previous videos, okay, where we talk about rich domain, so entities, aggregate, and value object, okay? And also we need the social security number, just like this. And yeah, that's all. So here we have the customer, okay, that we are going to use to be published, to be created and published once we invoke, okay, our customer service. Why the customer service? Because the customer service is the one, the component responsible for publishing this event, okay, customer created. So let's go here. And now the next thing that we can do here is just use the customer service and create the customer. So let's pass here the customer. This is the only thing that we have to do here in our base class. Now that we have here our base class that contains the method that invokes, the customer service, now we need to create our contract. This is where the things get more interesting. So now in that order, let's just go here, for example, on our resources. Yes, let's just go here on our resources and let's create first, okay, let's create first a package called by contracts. So the Spring Cloud contract need this package, okay? So now that we have here our package, I think that we can also, for example, yeah, it doesn't matter. So now that we have here our package, okay, now this is the place that we are going to create our contracts, right? So let's just, for example, create here our contract. We are going to use Groovy, okay? So let's create our contract. So it will be should publish, right? Customer created. So let's just add, my bad, I forgot to give the extension. So let's just set it as Groovy. All right, now we have here our Groovy file. So having here our Groovy file, now we are going to use some syntax, okay, which actually will come from the framework that we are using, the Spring Cloud contract, right? So the first thing that we are going to use here, for example, is defining our contract. So how do we define our contract? As you can see here, it just the IntelliJ is helping me. It imported the correct class, okay? So the way that we create our contract is just by using the class contract and invoking the method make. So now we start creating our contracts here. So the first thing that we are going to do, for example, let's just give a description for our contract. So the description will be, for example, the same, should publish customer created event. So this is the description. So now the next thing that we are going to do is defining here our label. So actually a label is where the output message can be triggered, okay? So I will explain it later when we will consume this contract, okay, in the consumer side. So, but in that order, let's just create here our label. Let's use the same name. Having here our label. Now, next thing that we are going to do is we are going to define our input, okay? So in that order, let's use here, for example, triggered by, okay? We have here some different ways in order to trigger an event, okay? So we can use triggered by, for example, a method or even a topic. But let's go step by step. So if you, for example, pay attention, we have created here our base class, right? So we are going to use this method here. So after having here, for example, our input, okay, now let's define the output message. So the first thing that we are going to do in order to specify the output message is defining the topic, okay, that we are expecting, or that we are going to send the event, okay, or the message, okay. So in that order, for example, let's use here send to, okay. We are using Apache Kafka, that's why I'm telling you that it's a topic. If you are using, for example, RabbitMQ, Google PubSub, maybe it's a queue, okay, you can use the other terminology, okay, other term. So in our case, let's just see, we are expecting to publish, okay, the event here in this topic, customer topic, right? So let's use it here, okay. Now we need to specify like what we are going to expect to be the message that we are going to publish here in this topic or in this queue, okay. So in that order, for example, this is where we send the event or the message. Now we are going to specify, for example, the body. So how can we specify the body? The body we can specify, like, for example, creating here a JSON or something like that, okay. But we can also, for example, the body attributes, okay, from a file, just like this, okay. So in that order, let's just create here, let me just, for example, put here, okay. Let's create our file, which can be, for example, in our cases, we are publishing as JSON, okay. We should expect some JSON, right? Publish customer created, okay, that JSON, okay. And now here we are going to specify, okay, all these attributes, okay, that we are expecting, right? So this customer object is the one that we have here, which first name we use here on our base class. As we can see, it's Josh, okay? Now, the next attribute that we are going to use is the last name, right? So as we can see here, okay, we have the customer, we have the first name, which correspond the same, okay, that we are using when we are invoking our customer service, okay, the last name, the birth date, and the email address, okay, as we can see here. So now that we have here our JSON file, okay, which correspond in our case the payload of our message, now we can just use it here, okay, just like this. Yeah, so this is the JSON that we have here on our contracts. So having here, okay, our JSON, okay, in this folder, I think the next thing that we can do, for example, is we need just to create here a new directory. Let's call it by should. Let's call it by should publish customer created. Okay. So let's move, okay, both of these files which represent should publish customer created inside this directory. Okay, because we can have more contracts here. Now that we have here our files and our directory, okay, we can compile, okay, we can build our application. Maybe install, let's build our application and install the jar. Okay, let's see. Okay, it's getting some exception, okay, because actually should publish, okay, we have created it wrong, okay, should be should, yeah, just like this. So having everything like this, okay, now let's build once again our application. Okay, let's compile and install the jar. Okay, the application, okay, has built, okay, successfully. Now the next thing is we need to understand what's happening here. Okay, we have our contract. Okay, so some people can ask, so where is our test? Okay, where actually is our test? So if we go here in the target, we can see, okay, the generated test sources, and we will find this class here. The first thing that we have to understand is that the Spring Cloud contract has created our test, right? Okay, now let's start understanding what's happening here. So the first thing is we have here should publish customer created. So as we specified here, okay, that we are going to trigger the event when we call, okay, this method here. So this is what we have here, okay, when we call, okay, this method here, this is the place that we have set up, that we have created, okay, this method which calls our customer service, the one that actually have the implementation that publish the event. Okay, so once we call this method, okay, we are going to expect that a message will be published. Okay, and now we start using here the Spring Cloud contract, the contract verifying message, in order to receive from that destination customer topic where we specified it. We specified here in our contract, right? So we say that this is the input, okay, and we are expecting here something, okay, we are expecting that it will send here. So coming back here, we can see, okay, that if we consume, okay, from that topic, actually we will have the response, right, the message. And now Spring Cloud contract has created the test for us, okay, the assertion here. The first assertion is the response is not null, because actually once we receive the message, okay, it should not be null. And then we keep doing all the assertions. For example, asserting that the customer first name is equal to Josh, the last name is Block, okay, and so on. But we can see, okay, we have this test, okay, generated here for us. As we can see here, okay, IT case, this is what we have specified here as name suffix for tests, okay. IT case, you can do whatever you want, okay, you can write as you want. So, for example, we can run this test, okay. As we can see, okay, we get the test passed, okay, and we can see here, okay, that our event-driven component, okay, actually is publishing the event, okay. So as we are testing this component here, right, not the controller, we will also test the controller, for example, okay, but our focus now is from message component. So as we can see here, we can still, for example, specifying here the header, right? Because when we publish a message, right? When we publish a message, we specify also the header. So we can, for example, go, let me just copy this, okay? And now let's go to our contract, okay? Actually, we are using Groovy, but you can use, for example, Java. You can also use, for example, YAML, I think, okay? Not I think, I'm sure, okay? And now we can, for example, add here headers, okay? Let's add here header, just like this. Let's put the header key, and also we are going to expect, okay, in our test, okay, we are going to validate that the header value also is present, okay? So the value is this one, customer created. So if we set it here, okay, now let's go to our test class. As we can see, we have not here, nothing about the header, okay? Now, let's once again compile our application. So, if we take a look now here, okay, we can see that now we have the header also. We are validating also the header. So, we just specified it here on our contract, right? The next thing that we can, for example, pay attention here is the fact that we have here, for example, the stubs, okay? This is a jar, okay, which contains our stubs. We have there the contracts, okay? The contract and stubs, and you can also find them here, for example, okay? We can see, okay, that we have both of them. So actually, the Spring Cloud contract, okay, will, when we package our application, as we can see here, okay, we are going to create also this jar, as we have here, stubs.jar. So this is the stub that we are going to publish to our repository. So for example, in our case, we are using the local repository, but you can, for example, publish to your Nexus or GitLab or something like that. Maybe in the future videos, we will see how we can publish the stubs, okay, to Nexus or GitLab in order to allow our consumers, okay, to get the stubs. But for now, this is what we have, okay? We can, I forgot to run the test here, okay, with the header. Let's just run. Okay, as we can see, everything is working as expected. And yeah, maybe the next thing that I can tell you guys is that, for example, when we run Maven verify, okay, we can specify, for example, we can specify in Maven, okay, we can configure the Maven in order to run also our integration tests, our contract testing, okay, during the verify or our Maven lifecycle that we want to set up. So guys, as you can see, Spring Cloud contract is very simple to implement. We just have done here with few steps. We have done the first step by adding Spring Cloud contract Maven plugin, as we can see here. Then we add also the Spring Cloud contract verifier dependency, as we can see here. The next step was defining our contract, as we can see here, right? Then we run the build. Once we run the build, the Spring Cloud contract generated our test and our stubs. And the stub was packaged as a jar, as we can see here, This is the stub as a jar. The framework just uploaded the contract, the stubs, and the project artifact to our storage. In our case, it was just in our M2 because we are using the local Maven, but we can customize it in order to, for example, upload the contract stubs and the project artifacts, okay, all of them into Nexus, GitLab, or other kind of storage. So hope that you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to go to the next video, which we are going to cover the consumer side. So let's go.